that this data we just got could be a little bit more positive. We still see the S&P down, but not by as much. And then if we get that little bit of dovishness from the Fed today, I could see Apple surging up towards that level to fill. Now it's not that far; it's only about $1.50 higher, but we know gaps are meant to be filled in general. And bring up Bitcoin,
even if it's years later.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So,
I think the stat is something.
This is immediate right there. So,
right.
Yeah, nice look. I like that.
Yeah. And I think one of the things to remember is that in general, gaps, when price gets closer to gaps, it works like a magnet to almost suck it towards it and pull it towards it. So as close as we are in Apple, it would be a little unusual not to see it fill within the next few trading days. But yeah, interesting today with
how would you approach it with puts?
Yeah, so I think once basically what I'm going to look to do is look to short it or buy some puts once we get up into that level, because I ultimately am bearish on the market. I think that, the market's in this weird phase of saying, can the Fed engineer this soft landing without, collapsing the economy into recession? And I think later this year, we get into a point where the market starts to realize that we are going to go into a recession, whether it's late this year or 2023. And the question then that's going to freak out the market is, how does the Fed save us?
It's lithium gold took out that 1780 level before it broke to 1680. Do you like it here? Would you buy breaks in gold?
Yeah, I still like it. As long as you're kind of holding this lower support around 1680, I think that's a really important level for it to hold. You can see it came right down there. It did sell off more than I thought it would, to be honest. But I think that, you look at the dollar and the vertical move we've seen in the dollar, and it kind of explains that away. And then you had this beautiful move up where if you connect these highs on gold, we did break above it. We did come back and retest it. And
that was 61.8 back of the rally there.
That's right.
Gareth.
That's right.
All right, buddy. Just wanted to know if I only know if I'm right if we agree.
Nice.
All right. Go ahead, buddy. So you want to talk Bitcoin? It's been kind of holding. It's a little, it's such an ugly formation.
It is. It is. To me, so basically when I'm looking at this chart, I'm seeing a macro bearish pattern, right? So we have this down move with this bearish pattern, which looks like it's starting to break here. We then have another micro bearish pattern, which is this big frame stuff. But you have these two green up candles, and then these are all really flat inside of those two up. So what that could tell us is we have a very short, small move up, maybe back to this line before the micro and the macro bears start to take hold and we go back down and start to collapse. So it would almost, I feel like this is almost too easy, where most investors are looking at this and saying, oh, that's an obvious bear flag. And usually it's got to flip those people out by popping up just a little bit. Right. It's almost too obvious.
You remember Joe Granville?
Yeah.
Were you old enough? That was one of his expressions. What is most obvious is obviously wrong.
Yes, that's a great one. That is a great one. So and the other thing on Bitcoin is, talk about just dead. It's really remarkable to see the Bitcoin chart over the last 7 days, but even over the last, since June. Considering the equity markets have been more volatile than Bitcoin for the most part, which is very unusual. I don't know if there's been a point in history where for months you've had, a bigger bounce in the NASDAQ, for instance, than in Bitcoin. And I think that tells us a couple things, right? It tells us, number one, that people are a little kind of, iffy on crypto because of Celsius, because of Terra Luna, all these. The other side of the coin too is I think we're getting closer and closer to that regulatory clarity, right? And so no one kind of, the big money at least, was kind of like, listen, we're not going to take a position until we get a little bit more clarity, since we know it's coming sooner than later. We hear from Gary Gensler. He's been talking more and more about Bitcoin being a commodity, but everything else kind of a security. So what does that mean for an Ethereum? What does that mean for the whole space? So I think those kind of are keeping money on the sidelines. My hope is that, and again, I'm a long-term Bitcoin bull, that once we get that clarity, the market, and this, Dale, is like, the market hates uncertainty, and that goes for crypto, that goes for stocks, every asset. So even if the regulation that comes in maybe isn't viewed as amazingly good, it might be the clarity that helps now bigger money say, okay, at least we know the rules. Now we can decide to allocate capital to cryptocurrencies. So
when do you, what price level do you back up the wheelbarrow to buy Bitcoin and Ethereum?
So for me on Bitcoin, I have it priced to go down to about 12 to 13,000. I feel like a lot of people are saying that level now, which makes me nervous that it could go even
Yeah.
lower.
Yeah.
But basically, I'm a dollar cost average person. So when I start to look at a long term investment, I'm not the type to just go all in at one level. Bits and pieces along the way, where as long as that long term thesis of Bitcoin holds true, I'm okay being out of the money in the near term.
Okay, Ethereum seems to be showing much more relative strength in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Would that also be, yeah, way above its lows, almost like a different market?
Yeah.
So maybe you go with the strength, right? I mean, maybe you buy Ethereum because it's holding up better, and on a pair trade, long Ethereum, short Bitcoin's been working for a while.
Yeah, it has. The only thing investors would want to be careful of is the merge, right? So how much of the upside that we've seen has been a kind of buy the rumor of the coming
Okay.
merge, and
Yeah.
then do we see that kind of, okay, the merge is gone, happened, yeah, it changes how Ethereum is and everything, but does it really change the psychology of investors? And that's where I would argue that it may not. We know that I think what they're doing is going to be long-term bullish for Ethereum, but in the short term, everything is ruled by fear and greed, right? So right now,
Yeah.
fear. And so I do worry that parallels are so powerful in trading. And this is my
Yeah.
favorite parallel. You take the
Oh,
low from
nice.
2009, this kind of kisses right here in 2016,
Yeah.
and you pierced in COVID. But if you take the body low and then look at how you connect, and it's a perfect parallel line to the Russia invasion high of 130. And then, I mean, again, just reversing. And by the way, with parallels, the beautiful thing about it is usually the highs will note extreme greed. So when we were at 130, I mean, you even had big banks like Goldman and other players saying 200 or
Right.
higher. And the public was just so bullish. And for me, that's always a trigger where I start to think the opposite. And then when you have a chart that confirms that, it makes it a much easier trade to kind of pull the trigger on, for me at least. And that's where you get your kind of your discipline and your emotional control in line, where you start to kind of say, okay, when everyone else is saying something, let me be cautious, and then let me look at the charts. Do the charts confirm my cautious nature? And if you get that, then it's usually a really powerful signal.
Yeah, that's a great look, Gareth. What weather is like here. The $7 area looks pretty impressive. If you go to, like, even something shorter term, it's grinding something out here.
Yeah.
I mean, really, what's changed between $12 wheat and 720 wheat, as far as supply?
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
totally. And in fact, I mean, there's just so much support here. This is a really good level. I mean, you could go back to 2021
You
here.
weren't looking at it before, were you?
No, actually, I
I bet
wasn't.
you
I
do
haven't looked
now.
at this chart.
Okay.
You're absolutely right. I do. Yeah.
Anyway, it looks like a sleeper to me, and
Yeah.
there's still a lot that could go wrong, and we do have water issues everywhere.
Yep.
It's either we're baking or we're flooding, and those aren't ideal conditions for growing. There's